Ought to be or not to be? Now that's a question I ask myself every day I wake up. What I haven't asked myself, that this series has gotten me started on, is what is a thermometer? And lucky for me, my lovely, lovely friend is very excited about this topic. So, let's see what she's got to say, shall we?
Unless something breaks, we never think about the objects that we use every day, such as microwaves, clocks, and pens. But all the objects in our lives started as somebody's fascinating scientific discovery. Perhaps in another series we'll explore microwaves, clocks, and pens. Today, I want to examine what makes thermometers amazing. In some ways, the thermometers we have today are not that different from those created 400 years ago. However, some of the thermometers we use today, scientists of the past could not even imagine.
Like what kind of thermometers?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you that. They're really cool though, but I'm waiting till the very end to reveal.
Okay, so you're not telling me yet.
No, I will tell you, but you're going to have to wait till the end of this session.
To me.
We discussed some of these in session 1, but since then, we have been learning how to measure temperature. It's time to explore how the thermometer has changed over the years and what future ones may look like. For most of the thermometer's history, they have been made from glass. This is an obvious choice since glass is clear, and you need to see the liquid inside. However, this is a complicated choice as well, since early scientists did not just pick up a drinking glass and turn it into a thermometer. From the beginning, thermometers were specially designed tubes of various shapes. This required a knowledge of glassblowing. You might think that they just hooked up with a glassblower, but more often than not, these men learned glassblowing so that their scientific instruments would be exactly what they were looking for. Today we use automated machines that blow an exact amount of air every time. In the 1600s, that would have been done by humans. Imagine blowing exactly the same amount of air into a molten blob repeatedly. It must have been tiring work, and yet for scientists, it was an important means to an end, creating the most accurate thermometer possible. Were there other materials that could have been used? The short answer is no. For early scientists studying temperature, glass was the only option. But it was a good option. Glass thermometers are highly accurate once they reach temperature because the glass does not change within the thermometer's operating range. Remember, glass melts at 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. It will consistently give the same results. Nowadays, plastic thermometers are an option. However, they are not a great substitute. While they can be more durable and safer than glass, plastic melts at a much lower temperature. Some plastics can melt at temperatures as low as 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius. As we know, that is the boiling point of water. Not ideal for a thermometer.
Or cooking.
Yeah, it'd really be a bummer if you stuck your thermometer in your boiling water and it melted.
I was thinking sugar for making candies, but yes.
Yeah, again, you really want like globby plastic melting into your fudge and whatnot? That'd be bad.
Somebody has definitely done that at least once.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Also, plastic can degrade over time, creating a cloudy or muddy look that is hard to see through. Although plastic has its uses in thermometers, it was not an option for early thermometry scientists because plastic was not invented until 1869 by John Wesley Hyatt. He was looking for an ivory substitute and invented celluloid. Clear plastic was first invented in 1906, way too late for Fahrenheit and Celsius and their contemporaries. Nowadays, plastic is used in digital thermometers, but only as a housing. The part that does the measuring is still created out of glass or even metal. We'll talk about metal next when we discuss the inside of a thermometer, but some digital thermometers use stainless steel as a housing for the sensors. Since digital thermometers are not viewed the way glass thermometers are, they do not require a clear substance.
Well, a digital thermometer would be like your phone, right?
Digital thermometers have probes that stick into things, and that's the part that will be metal, because you're not looking at it. It's just where the sensors are, so.
My dad has one of those for cooking meat. They work well.
Yes, they work very accurately. So if you are using a liquid thermometer, it is most likely glass, the OG substance for making thermometers. But what will it be filled with? The first thermometers were filled with water, but they weren't actually filled. The thermometer's measuring tube was open at one end, and that end was placed in a container of water. As the trapped air inside the tube got hotter, meaning that the atoms moved more and expanded the space they needed, the water in the tube would go down. As the air in the thermometer cooled, it took up less space in the tube and the water would rise. This open tube design was imperfect because it was affected not only by the air temperature, but also by the external air pressure. The first person to seal the tube at both ends was Ferdinand II de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany. In 1654, he created thermometers that were sensitive only to temperature. His thermometers were filled with alcohol, but I want to discuss water first. While the first thermoscopes were placed in water, it was not ideal for thermometers. It must have been hard for those early scientists to study thermometry when their instruments froze at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And of course, the water would boil away when the temperature reached 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
What was this in Celsius, though?
You have to remember that Fahrenheit started with water and alcohol and moved on to mercury, and by the time Celsius got there, he was using mercury.
Okay, so he wasn't using water at all.
No, not Celsius. He didn't have these problems. These are problems that Fahrenheit would have encountered. And possibly he was only using alcohol by that time. Galileo might have had even bigger problems.
Galileo had a lot of problems.
Right, but this was definitely Fahrenheit who would have been dealing with water and alcohol and not, because he was the one who put mercury in it, and then that kind of caught on. And after a while, everybody's thermometers were mercury thermometers.
Joy.
However, the boiling and freezing points of water were not the first objects measured by these early thermometers. Many of the inventors of various thermometers were doctors, and they used these cumbersome tubes to measure body temperature. Since the human body is around 98.6 degrees, water was a fine substance. One of the first water-filled thermometers used to measure body temperature was made by Santorio in 1612.
I remember this guy.
You remember the guy? The guy with a name so nice they named him twice?
The doctor guy who only made measuring things for humans.
That is correct. Now I want to talk about his thermometer, though. I have included a link in the notes of what this contraption looked like, and I hope you will click on it. It was crazy. To me, it looked like a glass snake. It wasn't straight, but instead bent one way and then another from the bottom, where the opening rested in water, all the way to the top, which had a bulb that fit inside a human mouth.
How did he stick it in people?
That's how he got their temperature. He stuck the bulb inside someone's mouth, and that's how he figured out the temperature of people.
Oh, I thought he stuck it down their throat. I was like, how the heck did he get it that far if it's snaked?
Imagine like a fat lollipop. You know, like a round lollipop kind of style.
Oh.
And you would just put your mouth over, except it was made out of glass, so don't chomp down. And it was connected to this tube. Unfortunately, I didn't find a picture that wasn't copyrighted, so that's why I'm telling you to go to the link and look at the picture, because it's a wild thing. It's also like a picture from back then in somebody's notes, and so it's even wilder. You got to see it. It is a crazy looking thing, and I am surprised that his patients did not balk at putting their mouths around the bulb. Once the thermometer was sealed, water stopped being the liquid of choice. Galileo was the first to use alcohol, he used wine, in a thermometer. I want to say here that Galileo's device was a thermoscope because it had no measuring scale, but since we are talking about the substances inside and not the style of measuring, I'm going to use the word thermometer from now on, since the only difference between a thermoscope and a thermometer is the scale. Alcohol has a freezing point of negative 170 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning that thermometers could measure objects below the freezing point of water. However, these early thermometers would have worked best at lower temperatures because alcohol boils at 171 degrees Fahrenheit. This is wonderful if you're cooking with wine and you want the alcohol to boil off, but it is not ideal for studying the boiling point of water itself. However, alcohol was the choice of scientists for almost 100 years because in addition to having different freezing and boiling points than water, it expanded more as the temperature changed, making it easier to obtain more sensitive readings because it moved up and down the tube more than water did. So while you may only be able to determine that it is about 60 degrees outside with water, an alcohol-filled thermometer would give you a more precise reading of 61.4. This is better if you want to make scientific measurements, but it is not useful at higher temperatures. In 1725, Daniel Fahrenheit designed a thermometer that contained mercury rather than alcohol, and it became the standard for over 250 years. Mercury freezes at negative 37.89 degrees Fahrenheit and boils at 674.1 degrees Fahrenheit, a vast improvement over alcohol. There are a variety of types of mercury. Elemental or metallic mercury is used in thermometers. This silvery substance is liquid at room temperature and, unfortunately, highly toxic to humans. Most household thermometers today are no longer mercury-based, and many are now digital.
Yay!
You're glad we're not using mercury anymore?
I mean, it definitely tones down the amount of thermometer murders there are in the world.
Oh, now wouldn't that be a great mystery book? Death by Thermometer.
I think we would have to title it something horribly different, like Temperature Heist or something.
That would make me wonder how they died. You know, did somebody stab them with a thermometer? Probably not, because I bet the glass would break before it went into anybody. But then you'd have glass shards all over them. There's so many possibilities for murder by thermometer, you know?
Please note that we have not actually condoned murdering thermometers yet.
Yes, we are not condoning murder by thermometer. It's just an interesting thought experiment. I could talk about mercury throughout history for quite a while, but Maddy prefers that I stay on topic, so I'll just add this quick aside. If you wonder how poisonous mercury is, the term Mad Hatter comes from hat makers who used mercury in the process. They suffered from tremors, hallucinations, slurred speech, and psychological symptoms that would have made them mad. It's not just a character from Alice in Wonderland. I wonder if poor Daniel Fahrenheit suffered any of these problems from handling mercury. There is another medical device that uses mercury. I know, this is another aside, but I just have to share this word. Sphygmomanometers measure blood pressure. I measure my dad's blood pressure every day, but it is a digital device, and I'm sure there is no mercury in it. However, the sphygmomanometer reads blood pressure by attaching the cuff to a glass tube that hangs on the wall. The tube used to be filled with mercury, and its level rose and fell with the blood pressure reading. It was often used by anesthesiologists, but now everything is read on a computer screen. I remember seeing one of these at my doctor's office when I was a kid, but I'd never heard the name sphygmomanometer, and it is too cool a word not to share.
Okay, how the heck do you pronounce that?
Sphygmomanometer.
Yay!
Not all thermometers are liquid. If you ever seen one that is circular and has a metal pointer that shows the temperature, it uses a bimetallic strip. This is a clever way to measure temperature. Two metal strips, often brass and steel, are bonded together. Because each metal expands at different rates with temperature changes, the strip will coil and uncoil inside a thermometer, causing a pointer to move and indicate the temperature. Have you ever heard of a paper thermometer? This is a newer thermometer that uses different chemical dots on a strip of paper. When the strip is applied to a patient's head, the dots quickly change color. The color indicates the temperature. These strips are being studied now, but seem to be fast and accurate. These strips may become more common over time.
Are they biodegradable?
No, they don't have plastic on them or anything. They're just paper.
So probably then, which is cheaper to make, which means people could get them easier.
Light can also be used in a thermometer, but I think it is more accurate to say it is used outside a thermometer. Infrared thermometers shoot a beam of light at an object. Because the object is emitting thermal energy, the light can measure the difference between the object and the surrounding air to determine the temperature. This method has the advantage of not touching the object, making it ideal for preventing the spread of germs. It can also be used to measure objects that are hard to reach, such as in a factory, since only the light has to hit them. However, these type of thermometers are only for surface temperature. They cannot measure an object's internal temperature. The one crucial thing that needs to be done to get an accurate reading on a liquid thermometer is that you have to wait for the liquid inside the tube to reach the same temperature as the object being measured. This could take as long as 20 minutes with a historic thermometer. Even today's thermometers should be held in contact with the item for at least 3 minutes. This is where infrared thermometers have the advantage. The wait time for light is 10 to 30 seconds, not minutes. We have talked about many unique thermometers in the past, but what does the future hold? Are thermometers still objects that are routinely used nowadays? Yes, and that need is growing. According to Yahoo Finance, the global thermometer market, yes, that is a thing, was valued at $2.2 billion in 2023 and is projected to reach $4.11 billion in 2032. That is a lot of thermometers. This increase is for a variety of reasons. The first is that, since the pandemic, people are keeping a closer eye on their health, including monitoring their temperature. Also, more and more thermometers are infrared instead of mercury-filled glass ones, and they tend to be more expensive. In industry, food service, and healthcare, new thermometers are being used every day to get the most accurate information possible. The newest cutting-edge technology may be coming from our own government. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, is designing an atomic thermometer. I'd like to quote the summary directly since they do a great job at describing it. The Atomic Thermometers program aims to establish primary quantum-based sensors of both radiative and thermodynamic temperatures in the range of 250 K to 400 K. Atoms may absorb or emit blackbody radiation, BBR, to change their quantum state. The temperature dependence of these transitions is calculable by ab initio methods. By monitoring the populations in one or more quantum states, the radiative temperature can be inferred. Did you understand half of that? Because I only understood about half of that.
Let it be known that I sort of understand what's going on, but I prefer to just listen as people talk. It makes me happy.
250 Kelvin is negative 9.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and 400 Kelvin is 260.33 degrees Fahrenheit. I used my Converter Plus app to figure that out. It is handy that this new crazy thermometer measures temps familiar to Earth. The article I found is math heavy, and I have it linked below. I do want you to know, however, that someone at NIST is a badass. They named one of their thermometers the Compact Blackbody Radiation Atomic Sensor, or COBRAS. Awesome.
Somebody has been reading a lot of superhero comics.
Yeah, G.I. Joe.
Go them for the naming sense, but wow.
We will probably not have an atomic thermometer in our house anytime soon. However, digital thermometers are safe, accurate, and fast. If you have any mercury thermometers in your home, I would take them to your hazardous materials drop-off location and then buy a digital thermometer. You can keep an eye on your health, make perfect fudge, and know when to take your steak off the grill, all thanks to thermometers.
Now that we've learned a little bit more about thermometers and some of the cooler designs that people have made, I've got a question for you guys. What kind of designs do you think are going to be popular in the future? Maybe we'll have one that floats in the air to take more accurate readings of what the temperature around us will be like, instead of using a satellite. I can't wait to see what we explore in the next session. I'll see you all then. Bye!